Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are widely available, free to download, free to use, and you can listen to this or any of the shows you enjoy on these two radio stations in crystal clear streaming audio for free. Did I say for free? It's for free. Also for free is watching the show. Anywhere you may scroll, we are there at Extra Sports 1300, at 740 KVOR. You can even follow me in order to watch the show at Gingerly Tweets on X and at GingeWatch on Instagram. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of the program. This, I assure you. If you would like to be a part of the conversation, love to have you. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to call or text in the show, or simply drop a comment on the live stream you are watching. I thought, Sean Payton can come off sometimes as a little bit of a grump, a little arrogant, a little short with people. So anytime there's an opportunity to show that, you know what, there's a heart in there. Sean Payton feels feelings. It's important to showcase that, important to show the duality of Sean Payton, and today we got that when the Saints put out a video of Drew Brees FaceTiming his former coach, asking him to be the one presenting him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Honest to God, I can't believe you just did that. And yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, we've done enough of this. Like all of a sudden, it's awesome. I can't wait. I love you too. Appreciate you.
And, all jokes aside about Sean Payton, that's a really cool video and a really cool moment between a coach and his quarterback. And if you've seen the video, you could even hear it there. But if you see the video, you get the full picture of how emotional Sean Payton was, that Drew Brees would ask him to do that. Today at practice, he was asked about the honor of presenting his former quarterback into the Football Hall of Fame.
It caught me off guard. I was with a group. We were getting ready to golf the next day, and I have a Droid phone, so I'd never really gotten a FaceTime. And it was just a lot, being 15 years together. And honestly, the thing, I remember talking to him later, a lot of times for a number of reasons, those quarterback head coach relationships, you kind of always take for granted, and yet oftentimes they don't end like you'd want them to end. And I was really proud that it ended the way he wanted it to, and so I'm excited for him. And it was as a coach, an honor that someone would ask you to do that.
The Payton Brees relationship, to Sean's point, is kind of rare. I mean, if you just think throughout the history of the NFL, probably the most prominent coach quarterback duo, there are others, but the one that immediately comes to my mind is Bill Belichick and Drew Brees. Or Bill Belichick and Drew Brees. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. That didn't end the way. Now, I think the parties are at fault for that. That relationship ended. Well, I guess in some ways it did end the way that they wanted it to. right? If you really think about it, Bill Belichick kind of wanted to perhaps prove that he could win without Tom Brady. It felt like even though the two of them were linked at all times, people would list Brady before Belichick intentionally in terms of who they're giving the credit to. And then I think Tom, for his part, maybe grew a little bit too big for his britches, which is weird to say because he's the GOAT. But I think a lot of the TB12 Tom Brady cottage industry probably wore down that relationship as well. And Belichick got to go on. I don't know that he got the better of that breakup by any stretch of the imagination. Still kind of on the wrong end of things at North Carolina with Tom Brady. It ended about as well as it does for any quarterback outside of John Elway. I mean, he didn't win a Super Bowl, but I remember Tom Brady's last game. I don't know that I saw a Tom Brady that was lesser than the Brady I had seen over the last few years. He didn't look like, Peyton Manning did at the end. But Sean Payton's right. I mean, it's with free agency and coach firings and, again, the idea that it goes quicker for quarterbacks than anybody else, right? And Peyton Manning is the perfect example. Came out of the neck surgery great, comes to Denver, looks every bit the Peyton Manning he always was, putting up ridiculous numbers on offense, and you thought it was never going to end, and then that 2015 season rolls around, Super Bowl 50, and Peyton Manning is hardly recognizable. So I think that's all in what Sean Payton is talking about. Any relationship, you may grow tired of the other person, especially, this isn't a familial relationship between the two. This is in many ways something between that and a business working relationship. And when you're not, connected by blood, you don't really want to push through any issues that you may have as much as you would if it were your family. So there's that part of it. But, coaches get fired. Quarterbacks get traded, cut. It did. I know the end of the Peyton era in New Orleans wasn't anything to, throw a parade for. But I don't think they got to kind of go out together, and they were still productive to a certain degree, not achieving the heights that they did when they won the Super Bowl. But I just get what Sean Payton is saying. Peyton Breeze being as productive and as good for as long as they were, it's incredibly rare, not just in football, but in sports in general. And thinking about that, you understand the emotion. You understand that Peyton and Breeze have one of the more unique relationships in the history of a star player and his coach. So that will be a neat moment. Certainly means a lot to Sean Payton. Don't worry, he's only going to miss one practice. VJ's got it handled. Him or Darren Rizzi will handle practice, he said. So don't worry, the business of the Broncos will roll on. Just one blip with Sean Payton being gone. But you wonder, too, when the name Drew Brees is brought up, and it's not like it's a rare occasion, right? Anytime you talk about Sean Payton and quarterback, you inevitably think of Drew Brees. but it starts to get you thinking about this new quarterback-coach relationship with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. And the sense that I get, and we're still early, like, look, we're talking about Bo Nix's ankle. So to say that this relationship between Payton and Bo Nix is going to be like it was with Payton and Drew Brees, already you're kind of looking at it and saying, I don't know if it's going to get there. Right? We had the ankle injury. Sean Payton's at a different stage in his career, so now he's, taking a step back, and some may argue that's for the best because maybe Bo Nix's relationship might be a little bit stronger with Davis Webb. So I don't think Bo Nix and Sean Payton are going to be Payton and Brees. But given that was the biggest chunk of Sean Payton's NFL career, him working with Drew Brees, I think he has every intention of having Bo Nix as his quarterback for as long as he remains a head coach. When you have that kind of relationship, that kind of continuity for years and years and years, you crave that in your next. I don't think that Sean Payton came to Denver or remains here in Denver with the idea that he's going to kind of keep on, trading up till he gets the perfect quarterback. I think that he recognized early on. I said this before the 2024 draft. As we started the process, I said Bo Nix is going to be the guy that Sean Payton's going to love because you can see some Drew Brees similarities with Bo Nix. I said that, I think, in like January or February of the year they drafted him. I saw the similarities. I saw the differences, but I saw the similarities and why Sean Payton might think, you know what, this is a quarterback that I would very much like to work with. And Sean Payton today was asked about the similarities between Bo Nix and Drew Brees.
From an NFL perspective, he'll go down as the most accurate passer in the history of the league, and collegiately he was at Purdue. And I think historically speaking, Bo was the most accurate college passer, when you look at a lot of numbers. So that would be the first, and a tough comparison for anybody, in their fourth year, but that would just be the beginning. Their personalities are different, of course, and but their accuracy and their positioning of the ball is certainly noticed.
And I think he hit on all the reasons why I thought that he would see Drew Brees in Bo Nix. The number of games, Sean Payton wasn't going to come out of his sabbatical to, coach one of these, not saying he wouldn't like Cam Ward, but or Cam Ward's not a good example, but one of these quarterbacks that, they burst onto the scene one year in college and then it just so happens to be like their junior year, so they leave. That kind of a quarterback, which there have been a lot of, I don't know that Sean Payton wanted to work with. But knowing Russell Wilson wasn't going to be the guy, knowing that it's very difficult, not impossible, but difficult to acquire a veteran quarterback, he looked to the draft and he found a guy that is as close to Drew Brees in some of these ways that, everything that Sean Payton talked about. I don't know that there's another quarterback in college or early on in his NFL career that has the similarities. So it's funny how that the timing of it all. I don't think Sean Payton was scouting Bo Nix when he was working for Fox or anything like that, but sure seemed like the timing of all of this really worked out. So this is the season before we start having the big conversation about Bo Nix and whether he deserves to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. And we're going to have that debate regardless. But I just feel like right now, barring health, right? That's always out there. And certainly with Bo Nix right now, that is a part of the conversation. I don't see Bo Nix playing at a level from here on out that would make Sean Payton go, I'm done with this guy. Like he did with Russell Wilson. I just don't see it. Now, if the Broncos don't win a Super Bowl for another couple of years, does Sean Payton get a little itchy, a little antsy, and maybe think about something else? If there's something better out there, sure. But I just think Bo Nix embodies so much of what he wants a quarterback to be, and he shares enough. If there's a Venn diagram between him and Drew Brees, that middle part is what Sean Payton is really seizing on. So I just don't see, and I don't see a ton of regression in Bo Nix's game this year or moving forward. The question for me is the upward mobility with Bo Nix. If we're having the Drew Brees conversation, can Bo Nix be as good as Drew Brees? I don't believe so, but how close he gets is going to be the ultimate question. I don't think Bo Nix is going, dropping precipitously from here. It just depends on how much better that he gets. But I think Sean Payton has every intention of being saddled with Bo Nix for as long as he remains in the NFL. 719-24/7-1313. Just getting going on this edition of the show. Coming up next, let's go to another quarterback. Bo Nix, I think, has to feel a lot of love right now from the Denver Broncos, from Sean Payton. I think he feels that. Quarterback down in the Tampa St. Pete area, not so much. You'll hear from Baker next. Would you like to go to every Air Force football game at home this upcoming season? We're giving you a chance, we being myself, along with Jim Arthur, who you hear weekday mornings 5 to 8 a.m. on 740 KVOR. We're each giving you a chance each day starting Monday to qualify to win 4 season tickets to all of the Air Force home games. You understand the premise of season tickets. I feel like I'm over-explaining things, but you'll get one chance with him in the morning, one chance with me in the afternoon each day, and then when we get a little bit closer to the season kicking off, we will pick a winner. So start your day with Jim and Sean, and end your day with me, and it could be beneficial to you for Air Force football this fall. So Baker Mayfield is not pleased with the fact that the Buccaneers did not meet his deadline, which was training camp. And Baker Mayfield even today said that he knows that the Bucs like to get some deals done in training camp. He wasn't willing to do it. And because they weren't, I guess, willing to treat Baker Mayfield a little bit different and kind of buck the modus operandi down there in Tampa, Baker Mayfield threw around a very powerful word when it comes to athletes.
Disappointing in that regard to not have, to feel disrespected a little bit. And that's really the disappointing part, to feel undervalued after, thinking you've earned it. This is not a poor me thing. There's a lot of other people that have it way worse off, but I can sit here and look at other quarterbacks and peers and evaluate myself based on that and put myself in certain categories that I deserve to be compensated for that. And I think I'm a franchise quarterback. I've been told I'm a franchise quarterback. It's been said publicly from ownership down here. And so to not have a deal done is very disappointing.
And Baker Mayfield is 100% right. If you put him in the $50 million range, we're not talking about Baker Mayfield being on Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar. He's not on that level. We're talking about the Purdy's, Goffs of the world. And you can even argue somebody like Baker Mayfield is a little less system dependent and a little bit less dependent on weapons, right? Brock Purdy, certainly Jared Goff to an extent as well. Look at the offenses they're in. Look at the coaching they've had. Look at the weapons around them. I don't know that Jared Goff or Brock Purdy, if I was, starting from scratch, if those would be the guys at the top of my list. I would want to make sure that the cupboards were stocked before I brought in a quarterback like that. And if my cupboards are stocked, Goff and Purdy were great. Baker Mayfield is a little bit more independent from a system, able to make a little bit more plays even when he doesn't have his weapons. And so that's why I get Mike Evans leaving is jarring. Like, he's been with Tampa forever and he's been their go-to, red zone, third down, like that's the guy. But I think Baker Mayfield, and sticking with the cupboard analogy, the cupboard's not completely bare on the offensive side for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has guys to throw to. The other side of the football is what I would worry about if I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. But the offensive side, I think it'll be okay. Part of the reason why I think they allow Mike Evans to walk out the front door. But I think Baker Mayfield can make more with less than some of the quarterbacks that would be in that $50 million range. But this is not Baker Mayfield, like, for all his, bravado, if you want to call it that, all of his confidence, unwavering confidence. At least he's not saying that has a very specific number that is nowhere near the top of the market, which puts a lot of people on Baker's side here. This guy is pricing himself correctly. He's not saying, hey, I'm the next quarterback to get paid, so I expect to be paid as the highest paid quarterback in the league. He's not doing that. So he realizes what he is and what he isn't. And I think that's also part of the reason why he's been overall so successful in Tampa Bay. And it's something he's had to learn is coming out of Oklahoma. I would expect that Baker Mayfield to say, I deserve to be paid with the top quarterbacks in the league. And maybe that kind of arrogance got in the way a little bit of his success early on in his career. But I think now he knows that he's a really good quarterback. He'll say he's a franchise quarterback, but he's not Allen, Mahomes, Lamar. So it just makes it even weirder that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't just going to sign this guy. But flip it around and look at this from the Bucs perspective. Okay? If you don't pay him, the franchise tag is going to be in that ballpark. Now, those can get contentious. I'm not saying there's no risk associated with franchising Baker Mayfield. But I mean, the franchise tag number would be in that general vicinity. Okay. And this could be a bit of a stress test for him. Doesn't have Mike Evans anymore, coming off of a down second half of the season. Kind of this idea like, look, and it's not to say that they can't get a deal done before they have to franchise tag him. So if I'm Tampa Bay, I don't know that I agree with it, but I also understand, but I do understand it because the franchise tag is not going to be that wildly different than what Baker Mayfield is asking for. Okay, so you have that ability to tag him. You can just, make sure that this is still the same Baker Mayfield that you've had for most of the time in Tampa Bay without Mike Evans. And if he does prove to be that, then I'm sure they would be more than happy to give him $50 million. And then the third thing is, and I mentioned this yesterday, if you're Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles, the front office, a Bucs fan, you love this Baker Mayfield. Him throwing around the D word, disrespect. That's the edge that you want. No, I don't think there is another player in the league that thrives more with the chip on his shoulder than Baker Mayfield. And there's no bigger chip that Baker Mayfield can have on his shoulder than my own organization, quote unquote, doesn't believe in me. I think this is business. I think this is strategic. But Baker Mayfield's entitled to take it any way he wants to. Right? Baker Mayfield, there's a lot of Chris Harris, Broncos cornerback, of that no-fly zone. Remember Chris Harris? It's the size. Like Chris Harris was viewed as undersized. Baker Mayfield's viewed as undersized, overlooked. They can both kind of say that to an extent. Obviously, Baker was the number one overall pick, and Chris Harris far from that. But I see the similarities. And a guy that will take any perceived slight and put it right on his shoulder and say, I'll show you. With all the turmoil around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, I thought he would be fired already, but certainly this is a lame duck. This is it for Todd Bowles. Vita Vea wants to be traded. Levante David retires. Mike Evans goes to San Francisco. There's a lot of turmoil going on right now in Tampa Bay, and you are not on paper a better team than you were last year when you kind of flamed out. So you need to try and find, how are we going to be better than we were last year? Well, let's look at number 6. If we make them get them a little riled up, maybe we get the best out of them. And Baker Mayfield intimated that today. Not towards the organization, but towards his teammates, assuring his teammates that they were going to get the best of him. I'm not a massive believer in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, just overall. But I'm a believer in Baker Mayfield's play this year. Can he compensate for everything else wrong with that team? That remains to be seen. So, you throw around that D word, disrespect. That is a big thing. The biggest thing in sports culture is the idea of respect and disrespect. Baker Mayfield feels disrespected. Is he? Is he now? That's the question I pose to you. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, all the talk about Bo Nix and Jalen Waddle and this vaunted Broncos defense, the pass rushers, Pat Surtain. Let us not forget the foundation of this Broncos team and really their identity and why they are in the position they are in. I will remind you of that coming up next. Whether you're a student, teacher, or parent, we could all use a little extra cash at the beginning of the school year. That's why we're giving 5 winners $1,000 to spend on any of your back-to-school needs. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest for your chance to win the back-to-school shopping spree. We get, we're biased as people who talk about football, as fans, media personnel, whatever the case may be. We get biased towards certain positions, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the pass rushers, but we can't forget where it all starts for a football team. If you don't have your offensive line right, doesn't matter what you have everywhere else. Now, there are some quarterbacks who can compensate for it to a degree, but I think the Kansas City Chiefs are a great example of this. Patrick Mahomes is now at the point he can't, the weapons that they have or lack thereof, this Chiefs team at the skill positions is just not good enough to overcome such a shoddy offensive line. And we saw it. It cost them the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. It cost them against Philadelphia. And it cost them routinely last year as they won just 6 games. So it's easy to forget the offensive line. It's easy to overlook it. But it's kind of like the plumbing in your house, right? You don't really think about it on a day-to-day basis. I wouldn't think people would. You just kind of take it for granted. It's there. It's always working. And then when it doesn't, it's chaos. It's the same thing for the offensive line. So we can't forget with the Denver Broncos, a big reason why they're here, coming off an appearance in the AFC Championship, people throwing around the word Super Bowl. This building process all started with Sean Payton coming in and spending a lot of money on the Broncos offensive line, and that Broncos offensive line has remained intact. In fact, it's Denver is the only team in the NFL this year that is returning all 5 linemen from a year before. It's been really, if you want to look at offensive line continuity along with production, because what good is it if you got a bunch of guys sticking around that aren't very good? It's really been Denver, Buffalo, Atlanta in the NFL, the 3 teams that have kept the most continuity on the offensive line and also been productive. And you can rank them any 3 ways. I think it's very clearly Denver 1, Buffalo 2, Atlanta 3. But these are teams, and we can just stick with the AFC. Buffalo, despite losing out on some skill position players, yes, Josh Allen is a big reason why they keep getting to where they're getting, but Deion Dawkins and the guys in front of them also help that out. And the reason why the Broncos are where they are right now is because of Mike McGlinchey in this offensive line. Here's McGlinchey on what that continuity allows the Broncos to do.
Leveling up our consistency because we've played together for such a long time. I think the relationships that we've built together, like those guys are some of my best friends. And it's if somebody steps out of line or somebody, goes the wrong way or isn't doing what they need to do, it makes it easier for us all to kind of get on each other because there's a standard that we've kind of set and that we've all agreed to uphold to. And I think just the overall, these guys got to do their job better than they did the year before or the day before, like we were just talking about. I think, and that's something that we preach every day, and that's something that I'm not worried about moving forward.
I don't know that in terms of protecting Bo Nix, this offensive line can get any better. I mean, Garrett Bowles hasn't allowed a sack in forever. Bo Nix was one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the NFL last year. I don't know in the passing game what more could be asked of this group. To me, it's the running game, and I haven't yet said that the Broncos offensive line can't run block. I would say that their strength is certainly more pass blocking than run blocking. But I would like to see an offensive coordinator, a play caller that is going to stick with the run a little bit, and then let's see what happens here. Let's see if this Broncos offensive line is great for pass protection, but just not a good run blocking line. Because that could be possible. I mean, maybe some of the reasons why Sean Payton didn't stick with the run is because he didn't think that his line could block as well. I think that's less likely than just Sean Payton loving the pass game. But it's another reason why Davis Webb is so intriguing. Is he going to stick with the run more than Sean Payton did? And then we'll judge for real what the full capability of this offensive line. Bo Nix will have his time to find Jalen Waddle. I have zero doubt about that. But as we're looking at ways for the Denver Broncos to be better, running the football. Now, as far as Davis Webb goes, here's Mike McGlinchey on having Davis Webb as his offensive coordinator.
Davis is a fire guy. He's very competitive. He loves what he does. I fully intend Davis to be carried himself with a lot of intensity, as he always does, but he's always very controlled. He never crosses the line. He's always, because as a play caller, you have to have your wits about you, and he does. I'm excited to see the energy that he brings. I'm excited to see how we operate all together, because the first 2 days have felt really good. They felt really crisp, clean, and exciting. And he's excited for the opportunity. We've met as an offense a lot over the last couple of weeks and early in OTAs, and he sets a great tone. And he's a good leader, and I'm excited for our offense this year.
I'm intrigued. That's the word I would use. Intrigued by the Broncos offense this year. It's funny. You can't help but listen to comments from Mike McGlinchey and others and just wonder, Davis Webb is this? Does that mean Sean Payton wasn't? Like the part where he said, doesn't cross the line, keeps his wits about him. I think there are a few times that we looked at Sean Payton on the sideline and said, I don't know if he's keeping his wits about him. But eventually he would settle down and dial up a play for the Broncos to get a key conversion on a third down. But Sean Payton ran a little hot on the sideline. And here's Mike McGlinchey saying Davis Webb has the potential to do that, but he knows where that line is. We'll see how fired up Davis Webb gets as the offensive play caller. And look, he's going to, here's the thing I'll say for Sean Payton. I don't know that his sideline dust-ups with Bo Nix or blow-ups or anything are productive necessarily for the Denver Broncos, but I will say Sean Payton has been doing this for a long time. He knows if he does blow up, to rein it back in. That manner for Davis Webb is going to be it's one of the many unknowns with that. When he gets into a high-pressure situation, as I expect the Broncos to be in quite a bit early on in the season with the schedule they have. And Davis Webb might have seemingly a better relationship with Bo Nix, but that's not to say that Davis Webb won't get mad at Bo Nix or Bo Nix won't get mad at Davis Webb. I think they're just all wired this way. Bo Nix is wired to run a little hot. But making sure you get on to the next play, because as the QB coach, you kind of have your say when a quarterback comes over and then it's over and done with for a little bit. The turnaround time is much faster when you're a play caller. It's the next one, and you're thinking 2 or 3 plays in advance. So I think that occupies your mind to where I think Webb, especially early, is going to be just so locked in to what the play call is that I don't know that we're going to get a lot of histrionics. I don't think he's going to get very animated on the Broncos sideline, especially early on. As he starts to feel it a little bit and get in a groove, then maybe we might see it. But that's what I said at the outset of training camp. It's Bo Nix's ankle, it's Jalen Waddle's fit, and it's Davis Webb's ideas. That's what I'm most interested in, while at the same time reminding everyone how, where this all starts. The foundation was this offensive and defensive line that Sean Payton brought in the moment he arrived. And it's allowed everything behind it to flourish over these past couple of years. 719-24-7, 1313. Take your thoughts on that. See, do I have something else? Here, while I'm with Broncos audio, got a couple minutes. Here's Tulanoa Hufanga talking about the big thing on the defensive side of the ball going into this year, which is creating turnovers.
For us, it's just really attacking the ball, whether it's in the air or, on the ground game. For everybody, it was really just a lack of turnover. We did a really good job of, getting sacks, but how can we get a sack with a forced fumble? Or how can we change this pass deflection into an interception or a tip just to get somebody else to get an interception? It's been talked about and it's been drilled. And at the end of the day, guys are working in the offseason to really make sure that's a point of emphasis. I think I talked to you guys about that last time. Like, I really messed up last year when it comes to those things. Like, I left a lot of we call it money, but money on the field as a team. So for me, going in and working and hopefully coming down with the field this year.
In some ways, in order to improve something, or I should say the surest way to improve something is changing something and changing the people who are doing it. The questions that we have about the Denver Broncos, the downfield passing game, the explosive passing game. Could you really expect the Denver Broncos to be better in that regard if they ran it back and didn't add Jalen Waddle? I don't think you could. You add Jalen Waddle, and now there's some belief that the Broncos are going to be a little bit more explosive down the field. Are the Broncos going to be a little bit more balanced, going to commit to the run more? Well, you can't expect that if Sean Payton's still the play caller. In comes Davis Webb. You believe that maybe this team might be a little bit more balanced. But on the defensive side of the football, the turnovers on the defensive side is akin to the running game on the offensive side, I think, in many ways. I keep hearing Broncos players talk repeatedly about the importance of taking the ball away. I heard it all last year, heard it this offseason, now hearing it again. The defense is pretty much the same. I don't know if of the things that the Broncos can do to improve. I think my confidence level is the lowest with their ability to create turnovers because it's the same people. And most of them are veterans. They've been doing this. So, but that's still a goal. Create more turnovers. Back after this. Welcome in. Great to have you. You could be listening to the show, and that would be awesome. Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR, or you could be watching the show anywhere you scroll, just as awesome and just as appreciated. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and X is where you could find us at Extra Sports 1300. Probably the truest path, but also at 740 KVOR, or by following me on certain platforms. I'm at Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingerwatch on Instagram. This is an interactive experience. This is live radio. This isn't podcast. Nothing against podcasts. Enjoy podcasts. Listen to Pablo Torre's podcast last night about Kawhi Leonard. It was awesome. But that's not interaction. Live radio is. So if you'd like to interact, please do. 719-247-1313. You could call or text in the show that way, or you can simply drop a comment on the live stream that you're watching right now. So Broncos opening up the season, obviously with Super Bowl aspirations. See what I did there? I mentioned Kawhi and the aspirations. That wasn't intentional. Super Bowl aspirations, high expectation, belief that this is a Super Bowl team. Just in case you're wondering, Sean Payton maybe not, doing any tricks or any motivational tactics or anything like that, like he has in the past about trying to hype up his team. And I have said that the tone that he set yesterday on the first day of practice at training camp was, we're not going to talk about it anymore. We're going to go out and do it. I think that's the tone that he set. His team believes. People outside the organization believe. Like, there's no shortage of belief in the Denver Broncos as a Super Bowl team. But now it's just, are they truly that? Sean Payton was asked, what makes a Super Bowl team? What do you have to have in order to win a Super Bowl?
You have to play good defense to be one of those teams. I think you have to be able to get good quarterback play. I think you have to be good in the offense and defensive line. And I think you have to be well coached. And I think we're all the above.
And I think, yes, I did. I ran through a little exercise last night, a game, if you will. And I would like to play this game with you. So 4 boxes that a team has to check to be able to win a Super Bowl in Sean Payton's mind: quarterback, coach, defense, and the offensive and defensive lines. So I mapped out each team, and I started with quarterbacks. I know the first thing he mentions is defense. I think that that's more of a differentiator. I think it starts. I don't think he's ordering them in importance. He's just naming them all. I think it starts with the quarterback, right? And I said this at the beginning of the week. I think we have a lot of good, let me emphasize good, maybe not great quarterbacks. I think there are a lot of teams in the league that can say they have a good quarterback. If we were to put each team and run each team through this litmus test, and we started with the quarterbacks, which I did last night, in the AFC, I came up with 4 teams that don't even get beyond that point. And we could just take them out of the conversation with the goal of, according to Sean Payton's take on what it takes to win a Super Bowl, how many true Super Bowl contenders are there? How many teams are capable of winning a Super Bowl in the NFL based on his assessment? Because there's a twist here that I want to throw in at the end. But let's start with quarterback as the first barrier, because I don't want to, if you don't have a good quarterback play, I don't want to hear anything else from you. I don't care what else you have. You're not winning. Okay. 4 teams in the AFC get bounced out of the conversation immediately. Raiders with Cousins. We're done here. We don't need to go any further. Cleveland, I haven't lost hope when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, but we haven't seen anything yet from Shedeur. And look, I got to eliminate some of these teams early on. I can't be going all the way through. Trust me, there are other pitfalls for the Browns awaiting them as I run them through this. So I'm like, I haven't seen anything from Shedeur yet that says that he's going to be capable of good quarterback play this year, although I do believe he is capable. So we could drop Cleveland from the list immediately. The Jets with Geno, get out. And I like Malik Willis. I do. Him in Miami. The cupboard is completely bare around him. And this is the first time that, truly Malik Willis has had his own football team. Even in Tennessee, he didn't. I think he got his career back on track in Green Bay. And Miami was looking for a quarterback. Their head coach comes from Green Bay. Makes sense. I think I like Malik Willis. But year one in Miami with everything else, no. I don't think they're going to get good quarterback play to put themselves in the conversation. Cam Ward's another one of those. I let them go on because at the end of last season with Cam Ward, I liked what I saw. So I kept the Titans going, but I said Dolphins, Jets, Raiders, and Cleveland. Can we just, be done? Like not even go any further? I think that we can. And then in the NFC, I said Arizona, Carolina, Atlanta. We just be done there, right? But then I start to work through it, and there are coaches that I like but are unproven, and defenses that I think improved, but I haven't really seen it based on prior experience on whether they had. So I ran them through every team through this and just keeping them advancing. And in the AFC, I have 4 teams that right now you could say confidently check every box. Okay? One is Denver. There's one more AFC West team. For me, that's LA. Herbert, Harbaugh, now with McDaniel, by the way. Coaching extends beyond the head coach. He has Mike McDaniel as his offensive coordinator. They do have a good defense, and they do have they are good in the trenches, right? And that's really their undoing last year was that all of their tackles got hurt. And oh, by the way, all of their tackles are all pros. So the Chargers, to me, check every box. Denver checks every box. New England checks every box. Drake, Vrabel, the defense, the lines. They went to the Super Bowl last year. I think that's not a controversial take. And the other one, as I went through it, I think Jacksonville has all of these. Trevor Lawrence. I think Liam Cohen was really good in his first year. Proof that the more awkward the opening press conference, with some exception, Nick Sirianni, that the more awkward the press conference, the better the coach may be. Sirianni just stayed awkward the whole time. Liam Cohen kind of settled into it after the Duvall thing. But I think Jacksonville checks all those boxes as well. So by Sean Payton's rubric, there are 4 teams that right now have everything they need to win a Super Bowl. Denver, Chargers, Patriots, Jaguars. On the NFC side, also 4. Rams, Seattle, Detroit, and Philadelphia. Good quarterback, good coaching, I know Eagles have Sirianni, but I like Sean Mannion a lot, and I like the changes they're making to their offense. So, and Fangio, we know Fangio, defensive coordinator, thumbs up, head coach, thumbs down. And then their defense and what they are in the trenches is you don't question that. Rams, Seattle, Detroit, Philadelphia. So 4 in each conference. So Sean Payton, by his metric, by his rubric, says there are 8 teams right now that can win a Super Bowl. That seems like a good number. That seems fair. But I went beyond that and I said, look, some of these teams don't check every box, but some of the boxes they check more emphatically than others. Right? And does that compensate for maybe the one box being left unchecked? To wit, there are 4 teams that I don't think check every box right now. I wouldn't check every box for them right now, but I do think that they check enough boxes, which is all but one, and can still compete. Baltimore, it's Jesse Minter, right? That's the box. I like Jesse Minter. Never seen him be a head coach, though. So that remains to be seen. But if he is the type of coach and the quality coach that I think he is, now Baltimore's on that list. They check every box. Buffalo, same thing with Joe Brady. And maybe you would argue that not anybody not named Sean McDermott being the head coach means that they check that box. I'm going to wait to check it because I want to see what Joe Brady is as a head coach. But I would say Buffalo is another one. Not that I think they'll be all right at head coach, but I just haven't seen it. So I kind of maybe check the box with pencil, not pen. And then there's 2 that are definitely missing one of those, not checking one of those boxes. Pittsburgh, their offensive line is terrible, which is problematic when you have a quarterback as old as Aaron Rodgers back there. But I think Aaron Rodgers was good, not great last year. I mean, everyone clowns on Mike McCarthy, but the guys won a lot of games, and the Steelers still have a very good defense. And then Houston, same thing. I know a lot of people are questioning C.J. Stroud. I think can C.J. Stroud get it done in the postseason? I think he's good enough for Houston to certainly make the postseason, maybe win that division. So I check the box for quarterback, but their offensive line's not great. They've made some changes, so we'll see. But the 4 teams that I can say check every box in the AFC. Then there's 4 teams that I can't quite check every box, but I think they check enough boxes that I don't think they can be completely dismissed out of the conversation. Notice I did not mention Kansas City because I'm not sleeping on Mahomes this season. Mahomes revenge tour, Mahomes bounce back tour. I'm all in on that. But I think their defense is getting worse by the second. I don't think they did anything on the defensive side to improve. They're making a huge bet on 2 rookies, one up front and one in the secondary, which I like both of them as players, but you're betting on them as rookies when you have 2 teams that are bona fide on paper Super Bowl contenders in Denver and LA. So I don't think they have that. And I talked about this last hour when you heard from Mike McGlinchey. The offensive line has become a big problem in Kansas City. So is a healthy Mahomes and Andy Reid and everything else they have enough to compensate? I don't think so, but I know Kansas City's kind of in the periphery. I think there are a lot of people that are like, I'm not going to completely write them off. but they're missing more than they're only checking half the boxes, in my opinion. But they resoundingly check 2 of the boxes. And then on the NFC side, again, same thing. The teams that I think are missing one, San Francisco. Trent Williams is another year older. He's been kind of holding that offensive line together over the past few years. But remember, they're getting Fred Warner back. They're getting Bosa back. Their defense is going to be good. Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. Kyle Shanahan, one of the best coaches in the league. So San Francisco doesn't check all the boxes, but I don't rule them out. And notice we're not talking about health. Like, health is the given. If San Francisco is as banged up as they were last year, then all of this is a moot point. But right now they're healthy and they check all but one box for me. I think Minnesota checks all but one box. I do. I think Kyler Murray is going to be good. I think Kyler Murray is going to be really good with Kevin O'Connell. And if he is, then again, offensive line. And it's funny as I go through all of this, based on the conversation we had earlier about the Broncos offensive line, another reason why it's really good that the Broncos have invested in their line the way they have is because there are so many teams that I run through this exercise that if they don't check every box, they fall short right at the end with offensive line. I'm like, nope, they don't have a good offensive line. They don't have a good offensive line. You get those good offensive linemen, you lock them up, you keep them because there aren't enough of them to go around. So a lot of these teams, the offensive line is the big question. And that's the same as with Green Bay. Quarterback, coach, defense, I like it all. Don't love their offensive and defensive lines. So by Sean Payton's measurement, by what Sean Payton believes, his criteria for a team to be able to win the Super Bowl, there are 8 teams that Sean Payton believes can win a Super Bowl. Denver, the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Jaguars in the AFC. The NFC is the Rams, the Seahawks, the Lions, and the Eagles. I am involving a couple more teams that I think are very close and may have other things to compensate for that. Baltimore, Buffalo, Houston, San Francisco, Minnesota, Green Bay. Does Sean Payton's checklist make sense to you? And do the Denver Broncos, does your favorite team check all of those boxes? Am I missing anybody? 719-24-7-1313 back after this. Moving from the NFL to college football. Nothing good with the Protect College Sports Act, which Penn State trustee Jay Paterno joined me earlier this week, said without this legislation passing, college athletics will not be fixed. There's no other way that they can do it. And Congress has decided to take their vacation, which they are entitled to. I would say that there is no career on earth that you get more vacation days than Congress. That doesn't seem right, but that's the fact of the matter. So they're going to go on their vacation and they're going to come back in September for 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, they'll either save college athletics or they will go back on vacation. And then they're not back until there's a whole, till half of the people in Congress are lame ducks because they've been voted out of office. So expectations from yours truly not high that this act is going to get passed and we're going to have much needed reform in the world of college athletics. So for now, we make do. And this season, it was always going to be the same. And there is in a sport that's still, I know the professionalization of college football, it doesn't feel the same as it used to, doesn't feel as traditional, feels more like the NFL more and more every day. But the coaches in college football are doing their level best to at least keep because in pro sports, let's be honest. I mean, these rivalries, we call them rivalries. It's really determining the factors that determine it. Both have to be good in order for it to happen. The rivalries in college football are more pure than they are in the NFL. We get rivalries for a couple of years. We have, the Chiefs and the Bills now because we have Mahomes and Allen, but wait till one of them leaves. Then it's not going to be one. It used to be you couldn't even think of a world where the Broncos' biggest rival wasn't the Raiders. And have you even, talked about the Raiders in a serious way for years? I remember being everyone was a Raider hater. I'm a bleeping Raider hater. I think most people are Raider pitiers at this point rather than haters. You just feel bad for what they've become or take joy in it. But either way, you don't really hate the Raiders right now. But if they got good again, I'm sure that would be rekindled. But in college athletics, it is throw out the records, right? That old cliche. It is throw out the records, and these coaches, they have their rivalries and they know how to stoke the flames. And probably the biggest rivalry in college athletics now, besides the NCAA versus its athletes or college sports versus, not annihilation, but, completely falling apart. That's a big rivalry. It's the SEC against the Big Ten. That's the biggest rivalry, not only in college football, it might be the best rivalry going in all of sports. And the guy that sits on the throne right now is Curt Cignetti, and he made sure that he stoked the flames of that rivalry even more at Big Ten Media Day.
The Big Ten is the best league in football, and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
And that was the last thing he said at the podium. That was a literal mic drop. That was the last thing he said, and he walked away. That dude is awesome and so good for college football. But that was directed right at the SEC. Trust me, Curt Cignetti is not taking a shot at the Mountain West or the newly formed Pac-12 with those comments. He is talking directly to the SEC, who I don't know if you've noticed lately has their media arm, aka ESPN, already planting the seeds of, if by the end of the season you look at the SEC and go, I don't know that there are that many good teams in there, or you start to clown on the SEC when the college football playoff rolls around and they get bounced early, Alabama, just know that it's because they've played a grueling schedule. You see that this week? Laura Rutledge, who is phenomenal, by the way, she's phenomenal, but that was absolute nonsense that she was spouting the other day that, the SEC, they're gassed by the time they get to the college football playoff because they play such a difficult schedule. They're going to go now to 9 conference games instead of 8, already laying the groundwork for the SEC excuses. Football means more in the SEC than anywhere else. You have to grant them that. And that's part of the reason, along with the fact that they have the strongest leadership from a commissioner in Greg Sankey. This is why they're the ones that seem to be, that Congress is bending to their whims, or they're more in the conversation, is because it matters more to them. But they're not the best at it. Not right now. The Big Ten is. Curt Cignetti is not telling a single lie in all of that. And why are they being able to do this? They're smarter. There's something to be said for caring the most, right? That's good. That'll get you somewhere, but you got to be smarter about it. And in the Big Ten, I just look at a lot of very smart programs that are spending their money in very smart ways, and Indiana is a prime example of this. Yes, they spend a lot of money. Make no mistake about it. Indiana is not crying poverty. They're generating plenty of money. They're paying their players plenty, but they're not paying as much as some of these SEC teams. But they brought in the right coach with Curt Cignetti, and he went out and identified the right players to be able to turn around that program and make them national champions. They're just smarter with their resource allocation. I heard Paul Feinbaum on the Dan Patrick Show earlier this week, and I thought he was spot on, and no one would know about the SEC better than him. The SEC, think about the number of coaching hires the SEC teams have absolutely bungled. I don't have it anymore. Do I need to bring up family? That's the gold standard for absolutely whiffing on a head coach, Brian Kelly at LSU. But the SEC has made these decisions, and they've lost Nick Saban. A lot of the SEC's power in college football came from Nick Saban. And now that they have a mere mortal as their head coach in Kalen DeBoer, now you're starting to say, Alabama's not as good. So it means more in the SEC. I think they have better leadership at the top with Greg Sankey. But you look at the individual schools, the individual athletic programs, the individual teams, they're just a lot smarter in the Big Ten. They're choosing the right coaches, the right players. And I'm so look, I get engaged in schedule talk. I've talked about we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos schedule all the time. I get schedules. I understand that's a factor and it matters. But you have to have some evidence to back up your claims, right? So, like, for instance, the Denver Broncos are arguably in the toughest division in football, right? Another division that you might argue is on par with them is the NFC West. Guess where the majority of the Broncos games are this year? In the AFC and NFC West. Right? That's a difficult schedule. These teams in these three of the teams anyway, in these divisions are good, are really good. So when the Broncos have, the Rams and the Chiefs and the Chargers the first 3 weeks of the season, that's a tough schedule. You can't just say because we're the SEC and we play SEC teams that makes it more difficult. Are your teams good? I just don't buy this. We're able to separate. If somebody doesn't have as good of a record, if we're watching the games, we could still tell if they're good. The SEC just doesn't have that many good teams in it. So it doesn't matter that they're playing the SEC. Right? If they were playing in the Big Ten, I think they have more of a case. So the fact that they're doubling down on this and they're trying to gaslight us all into thinking that, the SEC, that's why they don't win in the playoff. Not because they're not better than some of these teams. It's because they're too tired because they're playing all these SEC teams when only like 3 or 4 of them are really good and the rest aren't. But keep doing it. It's going to get us to the season kicking off. So SEC, keep making all the excuses on why you're not getting it done. And Kurt Signetti and the Big Ten continue to dunk right on the head of the SEC. I love it. Gets me fired up for college football season. 719-247-1313. Back after this. Simple question for you. Why pay full price when you don't have to? Especially these days, right? With sweet deals, you could save up to 50% or more on local favorites for eating, like Dickey's Barbecue Pit, like Louie's Pizza, and like many more. You can eat local, important. Spend less, even more important. All you need to do is shop sweet deals today or just now. Like, don't even put it off. Dinner's coming up tonight. You can have dinner tonight for half price. Extrasports1300.com or kvor.com. I actually need to do that. Don't know where the boys and I are eating tonight. Need to pick up some sweet deals. I feel bad. I proactively feel bad for Payton Watson. I don't know that I feel bad for him right now. Right? The negotiation between him and the Denver Nuggets is taking a little while, and that uncertainty, I guess, is got to be bothering him a little bit. But I feel bad for him moving forward, because after this offseason, when this season comes around, it's getting to the point that there is 0% chance that whatever team Payton Watson plays for next year is going to be happy with him. And it's not his fault. Because we are in this void of NBA player movement, right? The big moves have already happened. Now we're, fighting over the scraps. These are the lesser play. I shouldn't say that. Payton Watson's a decent player. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying the first wave, the A-listers are gone. That's the way I'll put it. The A-listers are gone. So what other recourse do teams have to improve their team? Where else are they going to go? Payton Watson's one of the few guys that has value that you might like as a player that's available. So every day it's a new team and a new team that's interested in Payton Watson's services, and now it's going to seem like half the league wants this guy. If the Denver Nuggets secure his services, we're going to place a ton of expectation on him, especially if he gets, the contract that Rich Paul wants him to get. And with all these teams sniffing around, if he does end up in Milwaukee or Cleveland or Atlanta, they're going to have high expectations, because my team has been trying to acquire this guy and they made a move and gave up draft picks. It's going to put Payton Watson in a tough position, but I think I chalk it up to the life of a restricted free agent. You're not going to get your deal done early. So you're going to be one of the last ones standing at a time when fans are looking around, and teams for that matter are looking around and saying, well, we're not the best version of ourselves. We need more. But LeBron, Giannis, Jaylen Brown, these guys are already off the board. Where are we going to go? So it's going to put Payton Watson in a position where I don't know that he's going to live up to the hype. That doesn't mean he can't have a good year. But it's just, it gets built up and built up when it's, Milwaukee's after him today. Oh, look, Atlanta wants him. Now it's Cleveland. Ramona Shelburne on ESPN saying that James Harden is waiting to sign with the Cavs so the Cavs can see if they can acquire Payton Watson. I find that sentence to be objectively ridiculous. James Harden has not signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers for similar reasons to why Payton Watson has not signed with the Denver Nuggets. Okay, because let me put it this way. Let's say James Harden was upset. Let's say the Cavaliers are poking around, in her words, on Payton Watson and seeing if they might like to land him in a trade. And let's say that infuriates James Harden. He's so mad. He is so mad. He is done with the Cavs. Raise your hand if you're a fan of an NBA team and you like James Harden to come play with you. Anybody? No? Okay. That's what I thought. James Harden has no choice but to wait till the Cavs are ready. There's no market for James Harden. Not at the money that he wants. I mean, if you think I'm being, unfair to James Harden as a basketball player, at least also factor in the amount of money that he's going to want. How many teams are going to want that player for that much money? He and the Cavaliers are kind of stuck with each other. And it's funny in the end, as bad as I feel for the city of Cleveland that LeBron, burned them again, I do find it kind of funny that when Rich Paul had his whiteboard, the one negative with Cleveland was Darius Garland not there anymore. Who did they trade Darius Garland for? James Harden. So I feel bad for Cleveland and Cleveland fans. They don't deserve this from LeBron for a third time. Because remember, he went to LA too. Right? Everyone focuses on Miami, and then this time around, he did go to LA. So to be left at the altar again by LeBron James, I feel bad for him, but I do put some of this on their front office that they weren't able to reel this fish in. And the biggest reason why may be because they traded Darius Garland for James Harden. But the idea that James Harden is waiting to allow the Cavaliers, this feels like the most tilt-a-whirl PR spin I've ever heard. Nobody wants James Harden. He's going to go back to Cleveland. Cleveland, I believe, are looking at Payton Watson. Again, there aren't a lot of options on the outside to improve a basketball team right now. I have no doubt that they're looking. I just don't think that the two things, the way she's putting it, Cleveland might be waiting to sign James Harden until they figure out if they can get Payton Watson. I don't think that this is James Harden in all his benevolence allowing the Cleveland Cavaliers to do this before they get his deal done. Come on. James Harden has no market in the NBA. The Nuggets are, I think, as far away from winning a title as they have been in nearly a decade, and I still don't even want them to add James Harden. On a nothing vet minimum, I wouldn't take James Harden. Again, the Nuggets are trying to win in the postseason, not in the regular season. They got the regular season. They'll be okay. So I feel but this kind of stuff doesn't help. It doesn't help, and I think it's going to be a tough year for Payton Watson to live up to expectation, which is probably more incentive to get a longer-term deal done and not play for the qualifying offer, because the view of Payton Watson around the league might not be as strong next year as it is this year, and if he's in a walk year, that might be problematic for him. I understand he's trying to get the most money he can. Two sides are playing hardball, but they should get Payton Watson should sign a multiple year deal with Denver or in a sign and trade. Get that security, get that locked in, because I think this might be a little bit of a difficult year to navigate for Payton Watson. But that's nothing compared to, on the topic of not being able to live up to the hype. It's funny. I was golfing with my brother this weekend, and he's a Cowboys fan. And I turned to him on the 6th hole, and I go, I think I like your boys a little bit this year. And he's like, I do too. And we had a brief conversation about it. And I was getting ready to go onto this show at some point and talk about, I think kind of like the Cowboys. I think Caleb Downs, really love that. That's my favorite draft pick that anybody made in April. Kind of like the Cowboys. To what degree, like winning a Super Bowl? I didn't say that, but I kind of like them this year. Well, that time has passed because there's no way that I can jump in line with the slew of people over the past week. Have you noticed that it's an annual tradition? I understand it, but I thought some people were done with the Dallas Cowboys. I thought I wouldn't be entering as crowded of a space, and yet I hear every show on ESPN and so many national sports talk shows talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and now I'm like, well, I don't like them that much. So I guess I really don't like the Dallas Cowboys. I thought they were interesting. But now you can't dip your toe into the waters of liking the Dallas Cowboys. You got to dive in head first to what has been an empty pool the last 15 years. You just can't. They're one of those franchises. You just can't. I was coming in with a reasonable take. Like, I like Dak Prescott. We give him a hard time, but his numbers are really good, and it's just been the defensive side of the ball, and I think Caleb Downs can do so much for them. I think he'll be I think he has a great chance of being the defensive rookie of the year. I know he's not going to put up big numbers because he plays safety, but I think he's going to improve the Dallas Cowboys. And, I could say all that, and I think that's fair. And I can also say, I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I think that they could be interesting this year. There's no room for that. There's no room for that. This is the Dallas Cowboys year, or you got to absolutely eviscerate that franchise. There's no in between. So I'm glad it happened, because then I didn't look like a fool wading in with like this reasonable take on the Dallas Cowboys this season and showing a mild level of interest when all these people nationally, all in a wave. Have you noticed that? Like, it's become Dallas Cowboys week nationally. It's like, nope, I don't love them that much. All right, I'm back on the other side. My brother's going to be heartbroken when I break the news to him that I no longer like your boys this year. Because I can't like them as much as some of these national people. They're interesting. But to be honest, when are they not interesting? They're always interesting. Jerry Jones just opens his mouth and it makes the Dallas Cowboys interesting. But as a football team, thought there might have been something there this year. But now I'm out. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you are streaming the show live in video form anywhere you scroll. If you would like to participate in today's show in a more active way, the phone line, the text line, open for you at 719-24-7. 1313. Also, through the wonder that is technology, you can drop a comment on the live stream and interact that way. Perhaps you have thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show today. All right, we start with the softer side of Sean Payton on display today.
Honest to God, I can't believe you just did that. And yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, we've done enough of this. Like all of a sudden, it's awesome. I can't wait. I love you too. Appreciate you.
Really cool moment posted on the Saints social media accounts today where Drew Brees FaceTimed Sean Payton and asked him if he would present him at the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And for all the, the bravado, the arrogance, the smugness, the short answers, the going after reporters, there are some people that do have a soft spot in Sean Payton's heart, and Drew Brees is one of them. And today he talked about just how rare the relationship between he and Brees was, not just because of the dynamic and the emotion and the connection that they have that you heard there, but also because think about the way that Brady and Belichick ended. Right? Think about, Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy, how that all ended. Like, it's just, we call the NFL not for long. That's true, even for some of the greats, even for some of the best. So for Sean Payton and Drew Brees to just have the amount of time together that they did is rare. But then to be as productive as the two of them were together, they're one of the winningest coach-quarterback duos that we've had in the modern NFL. But also at the heart of all of it is how they feel about one another. And so that's going to be a really cool moment in Canton, but it makes you start thinking about his current quarterback relationship with Bo Nix. I don't know that it's been always smooth, but I just think with the relationship with Drew Brees meaning as much as it did for Sean Payton, and does, like, I don't want to speak in the past tense, in the current present tense, how much it means to him. I think he'd very much in 15 years to be able to have that, to be able to say that he had two of those types of connections. And I don't foresee a circumstance other than Sean Payton's retirement or Bo Nix's health for these two guys to be split up. I think we've reached a point with Bo Nix that I don't think his play is going to crater. I have questions about how much he'll elevate, whether he and Sean Payton will be as productive as Payton and Brees were in New Orleans. I have my doubts. I have my questions about that. But I think Sean Payton has found something in Bo Nix that triggered the feelings he had for Drew Brees as a football player, but as a person as well. Like, there's a real human connection between Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and I don't want to understate that. I think he's found that in Bo Nix, or something like that with Bo Nix. I think he's not forever QB, but as far as his Broncos tenure is forever QB, I think he wants to stay with Bo Nix, and he'll move a lot of other things around to try and get the most out of him, right? He's already doing it. In comes Jalen Waddle. He elevates Davis Webb. But I think he wants his team to be quarterbacked by Bo Nix. Because I think he sees some of Drew Brees in Bo Nix. Let's go, excuse me, to story number 2. Things are not as lovey-dovey in Tampa Bay right now with a certain quarterback.
Disappointing in that regard to not have, to feel disrespected a little bit. And that's really the disappointing part, to feel undervalued after, thinking you've earned it. This is not a poor me thing. There's a lot of other people that have it way worse off, but I can sit here and look at other quarterbacks and peers and evaluate myself based on that and put myself in certain categories that I deserve to be compensated for that. And I think I'm a franchise quarterback. I've been told I'm a franchise quarterback. It's been said publicly from ownership down here. And so to not have a deal done is very disappointing.
That is Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback for now, Baker Mayfield, on his decision to not engage in contract negotiations with Tampa Bay. He gave them a deadline of the start of training camp, and Tampa Bay was not willing to get a deal done, not willing to pay him what is reportedly $50 million a year to be their quarterback. And he told Jeremy Fowler the bigger thing was not the money, it was the term, that they weren't willing to go as long-term as Baker Mayfield wanted to go. So that's maybe a bigger issue for him, is that they're not investing in him for as long as maybe he feels like he should be invested in. But I'll say it again, him getting paid $50 million. Okay, he would be just below Jalen Hurts and above Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. I mean, I know Darnold's a little bit difficult these days, but that's the group he'd be in. Hurts, Watson, Jones, Darnold. Darnold only gets 33. I can't even include him. Hurts, Watson, Jones. Baker Mayfield unequivocally deserves to be in that tax bracket. And by the way, it would be a $17 million jump. Those guys are kind of far away from Baker Mayfield in terms of pay. Baker Mayfield absolutely deserves that much. And by the way, he's asking for middle-of-the-road quarterback pay. $50 million is a lot of money, right? But Mahomes makes 64. Dak Prescott makes 60. Joe Burrow makes 55. Again, multiplied over many years. I would argue Baker Mayfield is criminally underpaid for what he is as a quarterback. So I think, and Baker just being Baker, I can see why he threw around that big word, which is disrespect. I understand why he feels that way. But then I also flip sides and go to Tampa Bay's side of this. Franchise tag's not going to be that much more than $50 million. Right? You've lost some pieces. You're not as good of a team as you were the year prior. So do you need a little bit more of a motivated Baker Mayfield, a Baker Mayfield with his chip on his shoulder? I think that's part of the calculation from Tampa Bay. And there's a third thing here that I wonder. I need Big Mac or Sean Martinez. I need a Bucks fan for this one. But I wonder if this is kind of the last hurrah for this version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for this phase of the Buccaneers franchise, right? Think about it. Mike Evans is now in San Francisco. Levante David just retired. I mean, in the history of the Bucs, you would be hard-pressed to name multiple guys that are more important than those two players in the history of the franchise. Vita Vea, they're playing around with him a little bit when it comes to the contract. Todd Bowles isn't going to survive till next season. I just don't see a way that Todd Bowles is their head coach next year. So do you want to invest in Baker Mayfield for 4 or 5 years when the rest of the team is crumbling around him? Or would you like a clean slate, a fresh start, and have a new era of Tampa Bay Buccaneers football? New coach, new quarterback. I wonder if that's a part of it. That Tampa's like, we're about done here. So we'll get a year, maybe 2 out of Baker Mayfield, and then we're hitting the reset button here. But regardless of what Tampa's thinking is, I don't know that I love much about this Tampa Bay team. I think Baker Mayfield's going to ball out this year. I think he's going to be really good. Where that gets Tampa Bay, a divisional crown, but maybe not more. NFC's just too loaded. But I think Baker Mayfield, whether it's Tampa or elsewhere, Baker Mayfield is going to earn big money on his next contract. He's going to easily get that $50 million next year from Tampa or someone else. Speaking of disrespect, here's Curt Cignetti stoking the flames of college athletics' best rivalry.
The Big Ten is the best league in football, and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
And with that, he walked off the podium at Big Ten Media Days. Who do you think Curt Cignetti was talking about? That I thought so too. I thought he was definitely taking a shot at the Sun Belt Conference. I think that's who he was really going after. The excuses coming out of the Sun Belt these days are ridiculous. He's talking about the SEC, who has spent the last couple of weeks like threatening, but not really threatening to break away from college athletics, that has had their hype machine. He's talking about ESPN spending hours of their programming building in excuses for the upcoming season for why the SEC may not win the national championship this year. Laura Rutledge on the Pat McAfee show. The SEC teams are gassed by the time they get to the college football playoff because they've played all these SEC teams. No, you're right. I've always thought that just playing Kentucky and Vanderbilt is just like, that's murderer's row. They care more about this in the SEC than anywhere else, and I have to give them credit for it. They do have strong leadership in Greg Sankey. But man, do they try to gaslight people into thinking that they're better. Like, look, you got a few really good programs. We saw Ole Miss. Ole Miss was terrific. I think LSU is going to be a beast this year with Lane Kiffin. I think Georgia is going to bounce back. But let's SEC top to bottom. Come on now. And the Big Ten just so happens to own the last few national championships. So the amount of propaganda coming out of the SEC, they'd be wise to throttle it back a little bit. And Kurt Signetti is quite tired of it. And he has every reason to be. The Big Ten is hot right now. The Big Ten is on top right now. And they have every right to dunk right on the head of the SEC. But it's the best rivalry in college sports. But best rivalry in all of sport today might be the Big Ten versus the SEC. I mean, how many the Broncos-Chiefs rivalry isn't playing out in Congress right now. So, I mean, SEC and Big Ten are. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. That is what's pertinent and important in the world of sports today. How about with your money, the financial markets? For that, we turn to Rick Stevens of FRS Financial Group right here in Colorado Springs. Each day he gives us his RBG report, Rick's best guess. Rick, what have you got for us today?
Well, today, investors were finally ready to pump some cash into markets on the post-earnings response to Microsoft and receiving a fairly benign print on the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge. The Bureau of Economic Analysis said that core personal consumption expenditures, or PCE, fell 0.1% in June when analysts were expecting a rise of 0.2. The PCE is widely seen as the Fed's favorite inflation measure, and coupled with a lower than expected initial jobs report for June, these key points paint a much better picture of the U.S. economy than is generally reported on. So, Rick's best guess is here. If these two key data points continue to perform this way, we are unlikely to see that rate hike before those midterm elections happen. And that is your RBG report for today.
Thanks, Rick. That's Rick Stevens of FRS Financial Group right here in Colorado Springs. Start planning your future today at frsfinancialgroup.com.
Products and investment services offered through LPL Financial, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. FRS Financial Group is a name used by independent advisors associated with LPL Financial, LLC.
Drive Time Sports continues next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300.
Here's an Extra Sports look at the streets.
Starting Monday, Jim Arthur and I are each giving you a chance each day to qualify to win 4 season tickets to the upcoming Air Force football season. He'll have a chance each day, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. Hopefully you're starting your day with he and Sean Martinez on KVOR, and then you can come on over here in the afternoon and have another chance to qualify. And then when we get closer to the season beginning, we will pick a winner for 4 season tickets to the Air Force football season. So be listening to Colorado Springs Morning News and this program on a daily basis. Let's get to a couple of texts, and nothing brings people out of the woodwork like the Dallas Cowboys. That is tried and true. Not much on the text line today. I say Cowboys, boom. From the 719, there is no reason to ever like the Dallas Cowboys. And if you're just tuning in and wondering, well, one, who is this person who speaks in absolute truths? You probably agree with him. But where this came about was I was musing to my brother over the weekend when we were playing golf that I kind of like his Cowboys. He's a Dallas Cowboys fan this year. And they got the best wide receiver duo in football. Dak is, I don't know, overrated and somehow underrated at the same time. It's the perks of being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. But it's mostly because I love Caleb Downs. I absolutely love Caleb Downs. It was my favorite pick in this draft, and I think he's going to help out that Cowboys defense so much. So I just talking to my brother and how I kind of like him this year. To what degree, I didn't tell him I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl, but I like them. And then the week began, and it became national hype up the Cowboys week, and I'm like, well, I can't be in this space. I don't belong here. You ever do that? You ever go to a movie with a group of people or go to a concert with a group of people and you're like, I like this band. And then you get there and they're like, I don't like them this much. Or I'm interested in these movies. No, I'm a Christopher Nolan fan. I don't know that I love it this much. And you just feel out of place. That's where I would be with my Cowboys take. I think they're interesting. I like some of their pieces. I kind of have an inkling today to kind of throw down my last bet on a lot of these teams that after this year, I will never believe in again. That's a tease. I'm talking Baltimore, Chargers, Buffalo, Houston. I'll probably find some place to put San Francisco. All of these teams that it feels like if they don't get it done this year, it's never going to happen. I just feel like across the board, I just want to pick them all. I'm not going to be right on them all, but I'm going to be right on maybe one of them. And if I'm not, then it's okay because I'm hardly right ever anyway. But also I could just be done and at least say I gave them one more chance. I don't know where the Cowboys would be in that because I think the Giants are going to be much improved, and I don't think the Eagles are going to fall off of a cliff without A.J. Brown. Jaden Daniels is coming back. So I haven't quite worked through the whole process yet. But it was kind of in that thinking, maybe I might find a place for Dallas this year. And now I'm like, I don't like them this much from what I'm seeing on ESPN and stuff. So never mind. Strike that. They're out. Now, that doesn't mean they won't make the playoffs because they almost always make the playoffs. We know what the issue with the Dallas Cowboys is. I like Dak. They have the best wide receiver duo in the league, and I love Caleb Downs. That's Those are my reasons. That's where that conversation came about. Another text message coming in, reacting to my take on Sean Payton, the moment shared between he and Drew Brees when Brees asked him to present him at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And I talked about in the last segment that I think Sean Payton sees some of Drew Brees in Bo Nix and sees that maybe he can have that kind of a relationship with Bo Nix that he had with Drew Brees. To a lesser degree, they just won't have as much time together. You know, Hurricane Katrina and the Super Bowl and everything like that. Like, I'm not saying it can be better, but when you're in a great relationship like that and you're not in that relationship anymore, you want to try to replicate that, find that. And I think that's what Bo Nix gives him the ability to do. But I understand putting the two of them in the same sentence would elicit some naysaying from the 719. He sees a first ballot Hall of Famer when he sees Bo Nix. That's funny. No wonder he had multiple losing seasons with Drew Brees, most overrated coach in the NFL. If Drew Brees had a different head coach, he had multiple Super Bowl rings. I admire your passion. I can't, at the start, I was like, okay. I can't get on board with that other stuff. I can't. We've lived in an NFL for about 30 years where it's been two teams, the Patriots and then the Chiefs. And that's about it in terms of when, and I shouldn't say it, Broncos have won a couple, like, look, getting one is a massive accomplishment, right? Just ask Dan Marino, ask Jim Kelly. I don't know about all that. Him being the most overrated coach in the NFL. I mean, he has a Super Bowl ring, and it feels like 90% of coaches don't. Now, what I will say is that it only gets you so far to have a Super Bowl ring in your new location, right? Like, if Sean Payton doesn't win a Super Bowl in Denver, I don't know that Bronco fans are going to look at him as the greatest coach in their franchise's history. Like, he's got to get one here. There's a statute of limitations to the point where Broncos fans don't care that Sean Payton won a Super Bowl with New Orleans a million years ago if the Broncos aren't winning one. So I'm with you on that kind of sentiment. And I think maybe Sean Payton does see a future Hall of Famer in Bo Nix, but I am with you in my doubting that Bo Nix will be that. I don't think he will be. I don't think he'll be nearly as good as Drew Brees. And that's why I said, I don't think that Bo Nix is going to, plummet down the list of quarterbacks in the league. I think he's reached a certain point that he's good. My doubt is whether he's going to ever ascend to the heights that Sean Payton does believe Bo Nix can be a Hall of Famer, because he said that Bo Nix in 3 years would be one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league. And if you are at any stretch consider for a decent amount of time, ever consider one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league at one time, you're probably going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, Eli Manning is getting in the Hall of Fame, for God's sakes, and we haven't said he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league at any point in his career. So I don't agree with that. I'm with you on that part, but they did win a Super Bowl together. They did win a ton of games together. And I think that you could do a lot worse than Sean Payton as your head coach. Follow up. What genius coach has losing seasons with an all-time great QB? I'll give you one. This is easy. Andy Reid just had a losing season with an all-time great quarterback. Rare, I know. It's happened. And it happened just as recently as last year. So maybe Andy Reid's overrated. If Sean Payton's overrated and Andy Reid are overrated, then we need to completely rethink the NFL landscape in terms of coaches. 719-24-7, 1313. You could tell I'm really hyped about this upcoming Chiefs season. You could really feel my enthusiasm and belief oozing. Yeah, they got Kenneth Walker, but they don't have anybody to block. And they tore apart their secondary. So, yeah, not seen it this year from the boys in KC. 719-24-7, 1313. Back after this. One more shot fired here at Sean Payton. This is good. We're feels like football season. I'm talking a lot of football. Broncos have training camp. Text line is taking shots at Sean Payton. I feel like this is right. I'm excited. We're back in football season, baby. This one coming in from the 719. Breeze made Sean Payton, and the Broncos defense has made him here in Denver. Let me read that better so you understand. Breeze made Sean Payton, and the Broncos defense has made him here in Denver. I do not agree. I do tend to say that the quarterback gets a little bit more of the credit. So if we're doing a who made who, Brady, Belichick, same rules apply here. Yes, Breeze, who, by the way, was maybe not viewed as what he ultimately became, but he was really good in San Diego. Yeah, really good. I'll say that Breeze deserves more credit for that fruitful relationship. I'm okay with that. Made him, I think Sean Payton's brilliant coach. I have my issues, and sometimes that brilliance turns into hubris, turns into arrogance, and you get going for it on 4th down in the AFC Championship instead of just kicking the field goal. Like, he's not without his faults, but he's one of the better coaches in the league. He absolutely is. And the Broncos defense. I will say this, the Broncos defense, the offense has to pick up more of the slack this year. They have to step it up more, because I know no one's crying over spilled milk with John Franklin Myers going to Tennessee, and Dre Greenlaw was a nothing burger here in Denver. So I understand you look and you say that this Broncos defense is not vastly different than it was the year before. I think the offense is going to have to pick up more of the slack. I wonder if there is regression, and that's what the big question around the Denver Broncos has been, one of the big questions. Are they primed for regression? The one-score games say yes. I'm going to take the one-score game thing and take it one step further. If they are banking on the defense week in and week out to bail out the offense, or to just allow the offense to get into the game. You know, Quinn Miners talked about this yesterday, said, you know, we got to start faster. I don't know. I think all those one-score games, you could look at some of them and say the defense was the reason. I think a few of them you could certainly say that the offense wasn't the reason. I think the biggest thing that the defense did that took its toll was having to shut down the other team for 3 quarters until the Broncos offense decided to start playing. That can't happen this year. I just don't think you can expect the Broncos defense, who is a skosh less talented than they were a year ago, plus who knows what's going on with Jonathan Cooper, still going to be very good. Don't get me wrong. But they had so much of the burden on them in these games because the offense just was wandering. And that's part of the reason why the texter is talking about the defense making Sean Payton, because if you're more impressed with Vance Joseph and his coaching job than you are with Sean Payton on his side of the ball, right? Or your issues are certainly more on Sean Payton's side of the ball than they were Vance Joseph's. So this is where the offense needs to pick up the slack. And it doesn't have to be necessarily in those late game situations, although that would be nice. I think it's more, how do you stay out of those one-score games? Sean Payton talked about it again today. Mike McGlinchey talked about it. Has been the main topic of conversation the last couple of days at Broncos training camp, staying out of the one-score games. How do you stay out of them? You take care of business in the first 3 quarters. The Denver Broncos last year did not take care of business in the first 3 quarters, and it was a Herculean effort from their defense to keep the Broncos in the game until Bo Nix and the offense decided to join the party. That can't happen this year. That's how you stay out of those one-score games. News out of the, I was heartened today with the news that the United States is going to win the next Men's World Cup. Did you see this today? The U.S. is going to win because everybody else is boycotting the upcoming World Cup. Who would have thunk selling off a stake in the World Cup to private equity was going to backfire so badly on Gianni Infantino? That's a big news item today around the world, but also here because CONCACAF, the organization, the collection of countries that the U.S. belongs to, and U.S. soccer are very upset about this. They haven't gone as far as UEFA has. Europe is like, we're out. We're boycotting the men's and the women's. Because the men's, it's like, okay, it's fine that you do that now. We just finished the World Cup. We got 4 years. The Women's World Cup is next year. And Europe's like, we're not playing in it. I don't think any other collection of countries have said we're boycotting, but everyone's firing back and everyone's rejecting this idea. And Infantino, like Icarus, he just flew too close to the sun. We complained about the ticket prices for the World Cup. That was the first thing, right? No tailgating was another leading up to the World Cup. World Cup comes around. We paid the exorbitant prices and we were okay not doing tailgates. Fans had a blast, right? We hated the hydration breaks. Still don't like them, but we started to tolerate them as it went on so you could get more advertising. Or so your TV partners could get more advertising, which means they're willing to pay you more because they can make their money back in advertising. However that dynamic works. We hated the hydration breaks, but then by the end we got used to them and it wasn't as big of a deal. The overturning of Flo Balogun's red card. Very upset about it at the time. Belgium was livid. But then Belgium went out and smacked the U.S. and everyone was like, okay. But then he went this way. Trying to sell part of the World Cup to private equity, and the soccer world, literally the world, came back with a resounding absolutely not. And if you wonder, I was having this conversation with somebody just about private equity's growing stake in sports, right? A lot of people are pointing to the private equity firm that has a stake in the Boston Celtics as a reason why Jaylen Brown is now on the Philadelphia 76ers. Now you have this thing with FIFA trying to sell a chunk of the World Cup, whatever that looks like. And the reason why, private equity, I don't think is beloved. I don't believe it is. But this is a part of our society that private equity cannot take over. Because as many of these soccer organizations and countries have said in their statements, it's for the fans. Okay, so if you're going to do cost-cutting measures, if you're going to do things just to maximize revenue, that is going to, because they don't care, They don't care about the fan experience. They care about the bottom line. And that in the fan experience and the spectacle that these sporting events are, I think the fear is that it's runs counter to the goals of private equity. Private equity, leaner, meaner. We don't want our sports to be leaner and meaner. We want them grand, big, and we don't want every little thing getting sold to advertisers. So it's a slippery slope when you dabble in that world or invite that world in to the sports world. And Infantino took it a step too far. So we'll see. UEFA, Europe says we're boycotting. Everyone else says we reject. We reject this proposal. But again, the Women's World Cup next year. So we'll see if Infantino backs down. That is just such a... Anytime you think any entity is corrupt, like you just look at FIFA and you go, nobody's corrupt in the shadow of FIFA. FIFA is just so corrupt. Sepp Blatter, Gianni Infantino, it doesn't matter. One more text coming in. He's on a heater today, folks. He is letting you know how he feels about Sean Payton. The Broncos offense has been terrible ever since Payton got here. Sorry, he's not brilliant. He's very overrated. Adds he loves the show, by the way, which is a little conflicting because I disagree with most of what you say, and then you drop that line in there. I guess for continuity's sake, to be consistent, I have to say nope. There's no reason to love the show. No, but I do appreciate it. And look, I don't have this season as Super Bowl or bust for the Denver Broncos because I think last year was a little bit of a mirage. If we're being honest, it was a little bit more wide open than any of us expected it to be. Some circumstances happened to other teams. And look, it ended up getting the Denver Broncos in the end, right? The Bo Nix getting hurt was indicative of the entire season, right? The Chargers had their offensive line completely decimated. The San Francisco 49ers season blew up because of their injuries. Patrick Mahomes, I'll be the first to tell you the Chiefs were toast before Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL. But the injuries and the traditional powers that were down, it was a weird year. And the Patriots and the Broncos kind of took advantage. Like the Colts didn't even stick with it till the end. The Colts kind of blew. All these teams blew up and self-destructed. So I don't look at this season as Super Bowl or bust because I think that the Broncos got much further last year than they would under normal circumstances. And I believe we return to normalcy this year. Doesn't mean the Broncos aren't a good team. Doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs. But I think there are some teams that are re-entering the conversation that's going to make life harder for the Denver Broncos. But the idea of championship or bust is all based on the expectation you have. Right? My expectation is that the Broncos have not been a Super Bowl team the last couple years, and I don't believe they are this year. So it's not Super Bowl or bust. But for a lot of people, it is Super Bowl or bust. And that carries with it a lot of harsh and difficult conversations if they bust. Who's to blame? Why are they not where we expect them to be? Could that in the end be Sean Payton? Could it be Bo Nix? We're all fixing to find out, aren't we? Can't wait. Hall of Fame game next week. Mark your calendars. And by the way, Panthers, Cardinals, and the Hall of Fame game, mwah. Chef's kiss. You really want to test how much we love football? Put the Cardinals against the Panthers in the Hall of Fame game. Appreciate the interaction and your patronage. Great stuff. Have a good night, and we'll reconvene tomorrow at 3. How's that sound?